from Brother Jason Scott. And the question is, what are the main points of differences between the Ashari and Maturidi schools of Aqeeda? Specifically, how would I know to which school I adhere more closely? And I will pass the mic on to Shaykh Hamza to answer this one.
Bismillah. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. I apologize for my voice. I'm not a bit under the weather today. The most important thing before I answer the question, it's important to understand what the Ashari and Maturidi schools are. And one of the things that I often repeat in many of my courses where we discuss Islamic belief is belief is simple, belief is simple, belief is simple. It's very, very easy to be a Muslim. The belief of Islam is very simple to understand. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Somebody comes to you, you can tell them what they have to believe in 1 minute. And if you find that that you need to take longer than 1 minute to explain to him what Islamic belief is all about, then your understanding of the core Islamic belief is too complicated. And this is one of for lack of a better term, I don't like using the word bid'ah too often, and I think it's an overused term, but this is an area where this really is one of the bid'ahs of our time. One of the innovations of our time is this obsession with Aqeeda, and people questioning other people's Aqeeda, and people saying you have to learn your Aqeeda, and make sure you learn your Aqeeda, otherwise you might not fulfill everything that you need to believe. This is it's a complete abandonment of the way of the Prophet and his companions sallallahu alaihi wasallam radiyallahu anhum ajma'in. So what do we believe? What are we obligated to believe? The belief that we are obligated to follow is the belief of the Prophet and the belief of the companions who followed him and of the early Muslims. May Allah be pleased with them all. Now, what are the Ashari and Maturidi schools? The Ashari and Maturidi schools aren't really statements of belief. They aren't point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4. The Ashari and Maturidi schools, they arose in response to a problem. And the problem was that about 200 to 300 years after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam left this world, what started to happen was that there were foreign civilizations, people with their own cultures, people with their philosophies, people with complicated theologies, people with different religions, the Zoroastrians, the Christians, the Greek philosophy, all of these things, people with all of these ideas, they started to become interested in Islam. And people with all of this with all of this baggage, when they want to accept Islam, they have questions. And the questions that they're going to have are not going to be simple questions. The questions that they were asking were questions that were completely unheard of during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, because the people who the Prophet dealt with were people who lived a simple life. But the people now were people with civilization, people with culture, people with philosophy, people with other theologies, and so they had very complex questions, and they had doubts, and they said, well, what about this? And they believed in that God is man, or man is God, and they believed in this and they believed in that, and they wanted they had complicated questions, and they wanted complicated answers. So the Ashari, Imam Abu al-Hasan al-Ashari and Imam Abu Mansur al-Maturidi radiyallahu anhuma, what they did was they formulated a way to respond to these complex questions. And so when does one need to go to the Ashari or Maturidi schools? One needs to go to these schools when there is a doubt. I know that we're supposed to believe this and this and this, but I'm having trouble believing in it because of this. And so you raise your question to somebody, and that person will will go to the works of the Ashari school of scholars or the Maturidi school of scholars and see how they reasoned and use their the intelligence, the arguments that they put forward, use these as tools to remove the doubt in your mind. And this is where it's practical, and so because this is the focus of these schools, the disagreements between the Ash'ari and Maturidi schools are very, very, very peripheral. They're not core aspects. They're things that the average Muslim won't even think about. And so as far as 99.999% of the Muslims are concerned, then they're neither Ash'ari nor are they Maturidi. Their beliefs correspond to both of them. Both Ash'ari and Maturidi schools are in agreement because the beliefs are so simple. It's only very peripheral issues where these things they come in, and that's on an as-need basis. A scholar who's an expert in the reasoning of both of these schools, normally they will use their methodology to solve the problems. And some of the questions, you find this, that there's questions that are answered in SunniPath to do with belief and to do with doubts that are answered, and all of these are answered in light of the works of these two great imams and the scholars who followed them. So the question, which school should one follow, it's not really an issue. What you should do is you should go to a reliable book of belief, such as Aqeeda Tahawiyah, which is basically most of the vast majority of conclusions in it correspond to both schools. Everybody agrees in it. Or something like the works of Imam al-Ghazali, the simple Aqeeda of Imam al-Ghazali, translated at the end of Reliance of the Traveler. There's barely any difference between the two schools in something like that. And one should go to a scholar associated with one of these two schools, and then take a simple book and learn it, and believe in it. And if there's any issues, you raise your problem to a person of learning, and he'll answer it in light of one of these two methodologies elaborated by one of these two schools. And then as one increases in one's knowledge and practice, one learns one or both, and it's a way of defending the religion, really. So inshallah, I hope that answered your question. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الله سبحانه وتعالى أعلم وهو حسبنا ونعم الوكيل.